Folks, these guys are with Skydance Interactive. They are Douglas Buffon and Chris Hewitt. And hey, I want to clear up one thing. I've seen Wonder Woman 5 times. And I've seen Skydance logo all the time. So where does Skydance begin and Skydance Interactive begin? And were you guys ever involved in Wonder Woman? Because someone's going to ask me that question among my viewers.
Gotcha. Well, I can't speak about the Wonder Woman piece. I'm not sure we were involved in that. Okay. But Skydance and Skydance Interactive. So Skydance Media is a media company, has multiple divisions: film, which is Skydance Productions, television, animation, and interactive. So Interactive is a standalone pillar within the organization, and as part of Interactive, we have an internal development studio. We also work with a number of external partners, whether it's through co-developments or licensing. So we kind of cover the spectrum, but it's all under that Interactive umbrella. And one of the nice things about being a standalone division is we're not just an ancillary to the film or the TV division like you see in a lot of other Hollywood studios. What that means practically is we have the mandate to do what's right for our business, and that means if we want, we can leverage the IP that Skydance Media has on the film, TV, or animation side. If we want to go out and license another property inbound, we can do that, which we've done with The Walking Dead and Skybound. Or we can create an original IP, like we did with Archangel, which is our first VR title that launched mid-last year.
So, how many years of CES is this for Skydance?
This is actually my first year. I think I can't speak for the rest of the company, but yeah, you know, obviously the interactive portion has been building, and we're working really hard on that. So we're coming to these types of shows, especially as we're working in VR and kind of that intersection between the technology and entertainment, and having these types of conversations with people to kind of stimulate new solutions. Since we're on kind of the forefront with VR,
Kind of.
well, you know, we like to be humble, which is very people not in Hollywood, not in Hollywood style.
Folks, I'm gonna strip out the formalities. These guys have done some kick-ass stuff, all right? I'm just gonna lay
thank
it
you,
out.
Zen. Thank
yeah,
you.
it's very true. And I want to talk to you all about that. So, tell us first of all about what you're featuring at CES.
I'm sorry, what we're...
Tell us about your featuring at CES here.
The featuring?
Yeah.
So Doug and I are both involved in a number of panels at CBS talking about sort of where VR is, what our take on VR is, some of the business of it, and that's been a byproduct of our game that's out there, Archangel, and the Walking Dead games we're working on, where people see that we are emerging as one of the leaders in the space. We have a good point of view, so we're really out there pursuing that and trying to share some of the knowledge just to help the whole industry.
Which comes first, talking about The Walking Dead? The story or a particular episode and the game, or do you have some games that lead and become episodes? Because there's so much material,
Yeah, there's a ton of material. So our work with The Walking Dead is based on the graphic novel series, which Skybound is sort of involved with. And we focused really on initially not so much any particular character or story, but what is it about Walking Dead that would be amazing in VR? That what is a Walking Dead experience in VR that you can't find on any other gaming platform? And that really means, how do you drop into the game? I probably shouldn't share too much about it, but what does it mean to really live The Walking Dead, right? It's one thing to read a story or watch a show or whatever it may be, play a game on a 2D screen, but to actually immerse yourself in that world, and now you are the character. You're not playing a character, you are the character. And what does that mean, to a player, and what kind of experience is that?
What does that mean to a player?
Speaking as a player, because I think we all really consider ourselves players first. We all have come from different backgrounds and everything, but we're extremely passionate about gameplay and just game interactivity in general, and how VR can provide that heightened sense of interactivity, unprecedented level of immersion. So, we're really taking it day by day in terms of the design, and Chris can speak more to this, but it's a situation where we want to move the needle. We want to do something very unique, as Chris was just saying, in terms of an experience you can only get in VR, but in this world of The Walking Dead.
How do you move the needle? Because when I think of moving the needle, I think of something like being able to have maybe another sensory device on myself that allows me to feel an earthquake. I mean, again, like we were talking about on the way in, we're in a society today where so many words have dual meanings, right?
Yes.
But what is moving the needle to you two? What does that mean?
Yeah, it really is putting the player into situations that they would not experience in real life, and letting the player make those decisions, putting them in a place where their decisions have consequences. It's something that's real time. The feel is what I'm getting at. That real visceral feel of whatever it may be. And Walking Dead is a great example where if you look at the canon, if you look at that property, they like to say, the Skybound people like to say, the walkers are really kind of like the weather. They come, they go, they're like a storm that comes and moves on, and you have to deal with that when it's happening. But the broader story, and the thing that makes Walking Dead, the universe, unique, is it's all about how do people act in this whole new society, right? And how does this new society, this new situation change who you are or challenge who you are? So bringing that to the player, right, in a way that you can actually feel that, you can hear it with positional audio, you can touch it and feel it and grab it. That's what we're talking about with moving the needle.
You want to add to that?
I mean, I think Chris said it very well. I'm not one with words as well as Chris is, but I think it's
he's being modest.
He just plays games, right?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think as we were saying, VR is such a fascinating medium because it sits at the intersection of so many other component industries, and so taking kind of we try to identify the most interesting elements of so many different points of the entertainment space, and how VR can push that forward and do something unique that gives you that order of magnitude, greater experience through that medium.
One thing that strikes me in a VR environment is sometimes you try to go beyond an environment and you end up walking into something, like a wall. Like, for example, you know what I mean? In other words, in real life, you're actually walking into a wall. What can be done to prevent that, but then make sure you're still immersed in it without by tactile feel? You know what I'm saying? Being taken out of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I think that's really a question that we focus on and talk to the hardware makers primarily, because they're doing a lot of those or trying to solve a lot of those issues. I mean, even with the Vive of it as it's set up right now, you kind of have the indicator in the world when you're approaching a wall or an object in the play area. So there's with inside-out tracking and a lot of these things that are coming forward. There's always the challenge of the play space and all of that.
What's inside-out tracking?
So basically, the idea that you don't have to have the same type of tracking systems externally. So as of now, you have the concierge system.
Well, yeah, the concierge system is the one that keeps you from walking into walls.
Right. And just like the monitoring sensors that the Rift uses and Oculus and all that. So it's pushing forward and basically making you more and more untethered, so not as many wires and connections. And that kind of
So within inside-out tracking, currently, the way the VR system knows where you are is by watching you through cameras that you have to place around your room. If it's the HTC Vive, you have two light boxes that are placed opposite one another, and they cast a light field that then tracks your movement and positioning within the world. Oculus, you have two cameras that you set on your desk. PlayStation, you have the single camera. So that is all outside in. The system is tracking you from the outside looking in. Inside-out tracking is where you have a headset where you no longer need cameras externally. There's some form of tracking that emanates from the headset, whether it's its own magnetic field or light field or radio frequency or whatever it may be, right? It is able to track where you are positionally without the need of external input, right? And then beyond that, there's the other set, the non-wireless, or going wireless rather, that Doug mentioned, where you have the processor embedded in the headset, so you no longer need a cable connecting you to a computer. So inside-out tracking and wireless are untethered.
I gotta ask you what I think is probably the ultimate question. I'm a big fan of Star Trek, going back to the original series of 1966, and I'm Zuni 62, which means I was born in 62. Okay. You all are aware of the holodeck. and what has to be considered the ultimate VR, right? How close are we to creating that experience right now?
I think we're kind of in the infancy. That's what's so interesting. But I think the goal is, it's amazing how Star Trek has kind of identified so many moonshot projects in the technology industry. And so obviously the goal there is to build a fully, an environment that is photorealistic and all that. And we're trying to create, our products and everything. The visual fidelity is really, really important in making a really incredibly realistic sense of the world. In terms of like the tactile and all of that, that's probably the biggest challenge with all the holodeck at Star Trek. You're able to interact with objects on the fly and have all those sensories. So that's probably going to be the most challenging thing. But honestly, one of the great things about being in the industry is that people come from that level of passion by being inspired like something from the holodeck and want to come up with really interesting solutions, even if they are years out. So it's having a lot of those conversations and seeing how we can help each other to ultimately deliver such an experience as the holodeck has teased us with since the 60s.